Tonight I wanted to bring you guys along on a quick video. Nothing too crazy. It's more of a quick tip type of situation. It's actually a thing that I did not know was actually possible, that you can make some calibrations or adjustments to the fuel level gauge. The situation with this is that it was brought to me by a car lot. They were driving it, and basically the vehicle stalled and stopped running. They were told that it needed a fuel pump, and he called me, asked me if I can install the fuel pump. I told him that yeah, it should be pretty straightforward to bring it down, but that I would only install a factory fuel pump in it. So moving forward, the customer brings me the vehicle, get a fuel pump, factory one. I then go ahead and install it, and I actually ended up driving it to see if I can encounter any issues. And I actually, after it was about a week's worth of driving, that I got down to nearly the bottom, just above the reserve mark on the fuel gauge, and the car actually stalled on me as I was going out to lunch, actually, and it would not start. It would just crank. It would hit a little bit and then just stall out, and then it would just crank, crank, crank. So I brought it, actually got it towed back to the shop and started doing some research, and that is how I found out that you are able to calibrate the fuel gauge. And then that's when basically a light went off in my head, knowing that this is what the true problem was with the vehicle, not an actual fuel pump and fuel delivery issue. It's basically the vehicle is running out of gas before the gauge bottoms out on the cluster. So this is what I ended up going through. This was done a few years ago, and excuse the quality, but I wanted to just show that it is possible to calibrate your fuel gauge, and if you run into this situation, this is how you do it. What I decided to do was to just go ahead and mess with the one that's actually in the vehicle and begin to do the calibration, or to see if this needs to be calibrated. What I did was I had to open it up, remove that pump, and take all the fuel out that was in there, because I want to start from empty, from the 0 point. I was able to get about 13 liters out. That's what was in there. So okay, so there's the float, and it's sitting at the bottom of the tank, and that's our starting point. Okay, so I just kind of mocked it up in there, like how we had it. I'm gonna let this ring, just hold that down. That way the pump module is fully compressed down on the spring. It's holding the bottom section firmly enough for us to take a measurement and give us our starting point. So I'm just trying to hit as many points that I can, because we're trying to calibrate this and not run out of fuel and have the gauge still show that we have fuel. So plugged in, it's sitting down, cap is on. Haven't turned the key on yet. Let's do that and see where the fuel gauge goes to. There you go. So we know we physically have no fuel, and it is just above the two red lines, not at the empty point. So that's how you can see we could get into trouble, run out of gas, stall, not start, and thinking that we still have some gas left. So this is our starting point. Okay, back to the vehicle. Key is on, fuel gauge is up. Got our scanner. We've identified the vehicle already. We're going to go into diagnosis, control unit, and number 17, which is cluster or dashboard they call it. And just curious if we've set any codes, which we have. Let's clear that. So yes, no faults. No faults. Okay. I don't know if it was guided functions. Let's go with this one. Okay. Let's, so I'm assuming this is going to be where you make your adjustments. Not 100%, but let's give it a shot. Okay, so this menu, number 1 will correlate with this button, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. Let's try to hit number 2, which says reduce. Which before this was at 130, we're down at 129. Move my eyes, let's see again. Let's try that. Look at that. So we went down to 127 and the starting point was 130. And it looks like we bottomed it out. Okay, so sender 1 is the one. This one only has one level sensor, which is why when I went into number 2, the value was at 0. So this particular vehicle, which only has one sending unit, is why we're only dealing with this category here. Sender 1, like I said, key on. We moved it down to the 128. It's still stored in there. The needle did drop down, and another thing I noticed is it does give me the gas light on now. I'm gonna leave it there, but that's the menu where you would want to go to adjust your gauge if you'd like to. And if you've got 2 senders, you would go there. This one here, I'm assuming, is possibly when your fuel tank is full. I'm not 100%. I've heard of people saying they top off and the gauge is still not fully all the way up. Possibly that's the menu where you would go. Right now, I want to just leave it where it's at. Gas light's coming on, needle is down. I know the tank is empty 100%. Next thing I want to do is just to kind of have a backup. Luckily, this vehicle actually still had the owner's manual, and I went in there into the specs, capacities, fuel tank. It's almost 20 gallons, but the reserve in gallons, 2.6. I went ahead, gas station, I pumped exactly, actually I did 2.5. Okay, so there's my gas jug, and there's the 2.5 gallons. I'm going to go ahead and put that in. First I'm going to completely seal up the sending unit now, the pump assembly with the seal and the ring, everything. Plug it in, then I'll put the 2.5 gallons in there and see where our gauge goes up to. Okay, all the gas is in. Let's key it up and see what it does. My luck, probably won't move or do anything. Look at that. We're just below the first red line. That definitely makes you feel better as far as where your cluster needle and sending unit calibration are at. And we're still getting the error message because we're within the within the 2 red reserve actually section, but it is, so we know, okay, so this will work out better. We know we have at least 2.5 gallons, which will put you theoretically just outside or right at the starting point of the reserve, which right now needle is shown just below or inside the reserve. Once that needle goes all the way to the bottomed out, the car's gasoline content is still going to have some in it, but if you're driving it at that point with the needle pegged down, you're obviously already gambling. And the important thing is that it's not going to stall with the needle still above and outside the reserve, which it would have done. Like when we first started, the needle would rise up above outside the reserve even though the tank was physically empty. So I'm personally okay with that. I'm not gonna try to adjust too much, mess something up. It's in there, it's done, it's calibrated good enough for me to let the customer know that once that needle's down, to fill up, because they're pretty much at empty, even though it's gonna have a little bit more in reserve because we know we got just enough to be outside the reserve. So this will at least keep them from stalling. Like I said, that was the more important thing I was worried about, and I'm definitely glad and happy that we were able to calibrate and make a change in the better direction as far as the indication of how much fuel. So I'm going to go ahead and drive this around the block for a little bit. Probably actually take it home tonight, come back in the morning, see where we're at, and then possibly even top it off, or maybe put another gallon or 2 in. But either way, quick video, try to show you how to calibrate your fuel sender unit with in a VW Audi group. And so that's pretty much it. That's what's involved in correcting your fuel level gauge on the dash and calibrate it correctly to the amount of fuel that you have or don't have. I hope you guys liked it and picked up something from it. And that's it for now, and thank you for watching.